I have the huge privilege of working across sectors in conflict resolution environments as a result of having a career as a corporate lawyer turned accredited mediator. And one of the privileges of my change management work is that I get to work with senior leaders who don't really know the path forwards, but they've reached this kind of impasse. And sometimes that's mediation, so that's resolving boardroom disputes. Sometimes that's rebuilding relationships between a leader and their team. And sometimes it's taking a real zooming into the organization and say, how can we work more effectively together? And that's been really eye-opening, I think, because it's all relational. All of the things that we experience at work come down to who we are, what our personal conflict styles are. And I think my training has given me a real empathy for complexity, but also given me a real heart for the people and what they're experiencing in every situation, so I can work with them to figure out what they want so that we can help them move forwards. So in my work at the WayFinders Group, but also working with the women-powered collective at Affleck & Co., I get to see a lot of conflict dynamics playing out, particularly in the boardroom. I think the most common are probably stalling. So where somebody doesn't really want to resolve the conflict, partly because they're afraid of owning their own part of it. Miscommunicating, so actually making things worse before they make things better because they haven't understood that they're misunderstood by the other person. And then I think the third thing is power playing. So it's kind of the ego-driven expression of the problem. And often what I find is separating the person from the problem is incredibly effective. So rather than laser focusing in on what's gone wrong, or who's responsible for what, or who needs to take responsibility for what, I need to separate the individual from their experience of the problem so that I can get to the root of it and help them work through it. And I've done that particularly in complicated mediations, and it's been a real opportunity to get people to see themselves clearly, possibly for the first time, to be able to have a safe space to interact with the things that they've gotten wrong in that situation, or correct a misunderstanding or a miscommunication, because the goal in mediation isn't just to get rid of the conflict, it's to work out how can we continue to work together, how can we repair that relationship, and what would it look like if we were able to rebuild trust in this environment so that we could get on with what we're actually supposed to be doing here. So I have the huge privilege of running the Longest Day podcast, and I've interviewed a range of sporting leaders as well as leaders in media and politics. And one of the things that I have learned from people recounting their experience of a crisis is often how lonely they feel and how unsupported they are in that specific experience. So whilst they might be supported outside the organization by family members or friends or spouses, in the organization, when it's your responsibility, or in your team, when it's your responsibility, you have to figure it out. And one of the things that I've heard from leaders is that kind of inner resolve that has been built long before that crisis has happened, to believe that they can get through it, to have that infallible belief in themselves that they will figure out a way through that. So whether that was Mike Gatting recovering from injury, whether that was Leah Wilkinson not making the GB team the first time round in London 2012, and then going on to these great, amazing victories, that inner resolve is what kept them going to achieve the things that they'd set out for. And it didn't matter what opposition was thrown in their way or what obstacles they faced, they were laser focused on that goal. And so I guess there's a resilience in that, but I also think that there is a humility that comes through having failed first. That is what stands behind every leader that's eventually become successful.